Welcome to a pivotal moment in the world of broadcast as we proudly present the Men's Mental Health Show featuring the renowned Larry Mabry in collaboration with the Maassen Group. This essential exploration of men's mental health wouldn't be possible without the invaluable support of Rainier Avenue Radio World. Now, let's dive into this crucial conversation with Larry Mabry and the Maassen Group. Your mental well-being matters. Here's Larry Mabry.
Hey, what's up, guys? Hopefully we're doing well after this blessed day. For those individuals who I wasn't able to connect with because yesterday was Mother's Day, I want to wish those individuals happy Mother's Day, belated Mother's Day. Hopefully you got a chance to spend some quality time with family, loved ones. My mom actually lives out in Michigan. I got a chance to kind of reach out and spend some quality time with the mothers in my life. So, but today I wanted to talk a little bit about Black masculinity. What does that look like? As we actually, just to kind of touch base on a couple things too, this month is May, and for the month of May, this is actually Mental Health Awareness Month. I don't know if people knew that, but wanted to kind of touch on a couple issues, and I've had a couple clients kind of reach out, and as we get into spring, a lot of times we have to do some spring cleaning. And we do it literally. I would also say emotionally as well as spiritually. And what does that entail? Well, this time of year, usually we're closing out some things. We're realizing some things within ourselves that aren't really working, that we might need to fine tune or let go or look at it from a different perspective. And, as men, sometimes that could be a challenge, right? So today I wanted to kind of talk about Black masculinity. What does that look like? First of all, being African American here in the society, what does that look like? Curious to see everyone's perspective. Me personally, I came from the Midwest, different perspective as opposed to me settling here on the West Coast. Some very interesting perspectives. I would say a couple things that I'm noticing with just masculine traits in general is typically, a masculine man will be more independent. You typically will find an individual that has a lot of strength. It could be internal strength. It could be physical strength. Sometimes masculine men could be considered aggressive because they're direct. And so the perception could be that they're a little aggressive, dominant. The one thing I wanted to kind of talk about today is restricting emotions. And what does that look like? Being assertive, right? Communicating what you want and not really dilly-dallying on that. And sometimes that can make people feel uncomfortable. Being brave, right? Standing up for certain things that you believe in. Showing leadership qualities, right? What does that look like? Sometimes you're going to end up being a lone wolf. What does that mean? Well, in your mind and your vision and your goals, you have certain things you're working towards, and you're not really out here communicating those things to people. And so that would kind of give people the vibe that, you're kind of doing your own thing, and that's okay, right? Another quality, not showing weakness, right? And you have to be pretty comfortable and confident within yourself to not show weakness. Another thing I want to talk about too is not being a gossiper. Wow, that's a powerful one. Yeah. If you're feeling some things about some people, you kind of keep that to yourself. For those individuals that chimed in a while back, I talked about having my Jedi Council, and I'll kind of reiterate. Basically, these are people that have skill sets in other areas that help you grow, and you confide in these people. I'm assuming these are mature people that's helping you grow emotionally. They're helping you grow spiritually. They're helping you grow in terms of your career or whatever you're trying to evolve into becoming. I would recommend you have one of those individuals. It could be myself, some other people. I'm a life coach, so I kind of work with individuals to assist them as far as their mental health. And typically, they're going to make those types of decisions to kind of help push you to the next level. And it's not going to be comfortable all the time, right? It's like hitting the gym for the first time. If you haven't worked out for a while, it's going to be a little rough, right? It's going to be a little tough. Your body's going to be doing some things that's not comfortable. But if you keep sticking with it, you'll notice that you'll see some results in a relatively short period of time. And that's kind of how it is when you're working on mental health. And why is that important? Well, we as African American men, we have a different perspective. And so I'm just curious to see if people want to share your perspective. But one thing I've noticed that I'm constantly working through is making sure that I am being authentic with myself. And what does that look like? Well, sometimes in your job, sometimes in life, you have these conflicts. And what is that? Well, there might be a challenge. There might be a situation where someone says something to you and you're feeling some kind of way emotionally. And, when I was in Detroit, a lot of times I would say maybe 20 years ago, I would just react from a situation. I wouldn't recommend that now. A lot of times now, what I would do is process it first and then respond. And there's a difference because when you're reacting in a situation, there's so many other variables in that situation that people aren't privy to. People can misunderstand, misconstrue things. And so I've learned that as I took a step back and started to just kind of like sit with it and respond to the situation. What I noticed for myself is I typically got a better response, a better solution, and I was in a level space where I can be open to the solution. And if you respond or react with that situation, typically your emotions will get the better of you and you'll come off as being too aggressive or being a hothead or not being open-minded and things of that nature. And ironically, I feel like we all have those parts or aspects of ourselves. But in a social situation, we're dealing with different cultures and different people to see things differently. What I find is for me personally, I've had to kind of, I don't want to say water down, but in a way, I've had to really become introspective. And what does that look like? Well, a lot of things that I would say out loud to people, I notice I just kind of keep to myself until I can communicate with someone that I feel comfortable professionally or someone I can talk to within that establishment and have that real conversation, because not everyone is going to be open to hear what you have to say. And so you have to kind of build up these skill sets in order to kind of mitigate through those things, right? Because it's true, right? It's true that we have these feelings. It's true that sometimes people can rub us the wrong way, but we have to kind of take a step back and ask ourselves, really, is it that individual, right? Is it some trauma that we're bringing to the situation? And that's a hard pill to swallow. I know for me, there's a couple situations where I noticed that certain patterns would constantly come up. And I had to be honest with myself. And I had a mentor kind of pull me to the side and says, Larry, you need to really be mindful kind of how you communicate in certain things to people. And because of the respect and care I had for that individual, I took a step back and I really started like just kind of taking myself out of the situation and really looking at it. And they were right. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I probably need to look at this a different way. And so when I noticed that I started handling things a little bit different, I noticed that people felt more comfortable with kind of trying to resolve the issue. And sometimes because of the trauma we have, we see things a certain way, right? And so let me give you an example. Let's say that you had a boss that wasn't really fair to you, right? And for whatever reason, you and that boss, you parted ways. And so now you go to another job and everything is cool. But all of a sudden you have a similar situation, even though that's a different individual. Well, if you are having some animosity based on that past, you may respond in a way that is very toxic or very unapproachable for that individual, right? And it's unfortunate because you've had that trauma of that past experience, and unfortunately you project that on the new experience, and the individual may have similar type of situations, but they don't have that background knowledge you have. And so what ends up happening is, even though that situation could be totally different, what happens is you shut down or you go back to that scenario that happened in the past. And so now you have this dialogue in your mind going on that's not really true, right? So now when you deal with that situation, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to probably be a little bit more aggressive. You're not going to really be open. And it depends, right? Like if you left that situation and things were not really positive, then what do you think is going to happen? You're going to come off as being the individual that's not really open-minded, right? And so when I took a step back and said, you know what, let me look at all situations as a learning experience. How can I learn through these situations? Because at the end of the day, I want to be a better person so that I could be successful, whatever that means to me, as well as my family. I had those real conversations and realized that some of the things that I was bringing to that situation was traumas and experiences that I was not willing to heal. And I wanted to bring that up because as we heal those things and we're honest with ourselves with those things, what ends up happening is we end up creating a better type of relationship with ourselves, as well as our bosses, as well as those particular experiences. And so let's talk about that. So to be masculine, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. However, sometimes we could be overly aggressive, right? And I know if if I haven't eaten, I think they call it hangry. I may notice that I may snap at somebody and someone's like, man, you said that with attitude. And I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right. I guess I might need to check myself on that, right? And also too, if you're noticing that with you're around certain people, you notice that you're getting irritated, right? You have to kind of check yourself, like, okay, why am I frustrated? What's really going on, right? Am I really balancing things out within my schedule? Am I telling people what I need, right? Because sometimes I would say also as men, we really want to make sure we do a good job. And I know for me, sometimes it's hard to say no, right? Because we have so many things that we're responsible for. We don't want to appear as weak. So we may say, okay, we'll take care of it. But we end up piling, 15 things on our plate, right? And 4 of them are falling off. And we may not ask for help, right? Because we were never taught to do that. So what ends up happening? We may snap at somebody, or we may be overly aggressive at someone, right? But whose fault is that? Is that other person's? No, we need to basically communicate our needs. And so I want to kind of address that today, because what are we doing to take care of ourselves, right? It's hard out here for a lot of people. And sometimes I feel like within our DNA, we're carrying a struggle and it's not really necessary, right? And sometimes it may be situations we caught on from our parents. It could be from our grandparents. It could be from our community. And we have to really get honest with ourselves and say, what do we really want? I noticed when I moved out here, I had to let some people go. Was it a challenge? Oh yeah, it was a challenge, because some of those things that I grew up with, I kind of thought they were part of me. And when I started healing some things within myself, I realized that, that really was not me. And you have to really connect with I would say, whoever higher power that you connect with. I think that's really important. For me, I believe that God is within every one of us. But I realize that everyone here may have a different view as far as what God means to that person. So, but to me, I think that's important to have that connection, because during those tough times, you have to connect with a power outside yourself or within yourself to kind of get you through those rough times. But also too, you have to be honest with yourself, because if you're not keeping it 100, then how can you really truly be authentic with other people, right? And sometimes, talking to someone like myself, life coach, or a friend who cares, who sees another aspect of you that you may not be privy to, can kind of shed some light on some things, to kind of help you become a better person. I recall one time I was hanging out with a friend, and I was going through a rough time. And a friend just said, you know what? I remember you used to smile more. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And it actually takes less muscles to smile. I'm sorry. It takes more muscles to frown than it is to smile. And so what I started doing, I was doing this for a while, and I would tell my clients to do this, is when you get up in the morning, make sure you do an affirmation, look yourself in the mirror and smile at yourself and just say, I'm awesome. And it's going to feel weird at first, right? Because like you're forcing it. But it's okay to smile at yourself and to see yourself in a higher light. And so I think sometimes with we as African Americans, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves based on the struggle, based on the expectation. And so I want to talk about that. Like, really, is that really important? Right. So what is really important for us out here, right? And depending on which particular group that you connect with, that can change. And so I would ask each and every person out here that's listening, find out what's really important for you, right? Um, if you're in a particular job that you're not really happy with, why are you there? Right? If you think, oh, I'm making six figures or I'm making pretty good money, okay. But the cool thing is, guess what? You can create another position that does the same thing, right? And if you are doing something that's not really helping you in your mind, body, spirit, then maybe you need to kind of take a step back and reevaluate what's really important to you. And I understand, I've been in those positions where, I was doing something just to kind of make ends meet. But what ends up happening is you're communicating to the universe that you're just in survival mode. And granted, I understand sometimes we got to get there. But in order for you to change that, you kind of need to take a step back and say, you know what? I deserve something better. And so you have to take a stand. And what's really cool is when you do that, then the universe will support you with that. But how do you do that? Well, first of all, what things are you telling yourself? Right? A lot of times we tell ourselves these stories, but are they really true? Right? Who are we really being strong for? Who are we upset at? You know, why are we trying to be so strong? I would say for me, the challenge or the growth that I've been really working on this past year has been self-love. And what does that look like? Well, coming from Detroit, it was very challenging for a male to just say, hey man, I love you. Like that was like a challenge, right? Because you looked at as being gay, you looked at as being weak. Um, and depending on your relationship with your dad, it's like, we as men, it's nothing wrong with that. But society says this, we see these images and we think that, and a lot of that stuff are illusions. So we have to kind of strip all that away and say, okay, what's really important? And every day you have to kind of have this real talk with yourself. Like, what is really, really important for you? What gives you joy? Right. So if I were to ask you guys right now, name one thing that gives you joy, one thing you're really excited about. Is it playing the PlayStation? Is it going for a drive? Is it your job? Is it spending some quality time with your son or daughter? Your wife, your girlfriend, going out for a walk, going to the beach. And these are questions you need to ask yourself. What is it that really brings you joy? Right? Do those things daily. Those things are the things that are really true that kind of keep you connected to what's really important. And I feel like sometimes we can get blindsided by these jobs. We get blindsided with a lot of these commercial things that we have to do. And we feel like that's what's really important. And I'm not saying, we can't pay our bills. I'm not saying we can't take care of that. However, at least an hour a day, we have to make sure that we're depositing things within ourselves, right? It could be self-help, it could be yoga, it could be hooping, some things you enjoy doing. It's some sort of deposit, emotional deposit that you're giving to yourself every single day so that you realize that you're the most important person as far as what you want for your dreams and your goals. But if you feel like you're giving to everyone else, because I would say we as Black men, a lot of times, especially if you got a family, I mean, it's like we're giving to everything, to the wife, to the kids, to the family, to the job, to the business, right? And unfortunately, it's like it's just kind of the expectation, right? And a lot of times we as men, we don't really get the pat on the back. We don't really get the hey, I love you, as much as we would like to. And so I kind of would ask you to kind of say that to yourself, you know. And for those individuals out there, I just want to say, yo, brother to brother, I love you. You know what I'm saying? I got love for you. I know what you're doing out here every day, and I see you. Um, and so check in with yourself and make sure you say that to yourself, right? You're putting in this work every day. You're getting up early, you're staying late, doing all these things. When's the last time you gave yourself a pat on the back? Very, very important. Very important. Because as you focus on these things that are important to yourself, guess what happens? You create more of it. So if you stop and smell the roses and acknowledge the love and the connectivity and the support that you're giving yourself, then you get more of that. Okay, so a couple of more things I want to talk about that as far as the Black masculinity. How is it that we go out here and we show weakness? What are some examples? Well, a lot of times maybe we don't speak up, right? We're feeling some things, but maybe we don't really speak up, right? Why not? Why are we being afraid to speak our truth, right? I feel like it's important for us to do that. Why do we restrict our emotions, right? I mean, it's important for us to express ourselves. And for those individuals that struggle, I recommend, your phone, using the notes, or if you get a journal, right? Practice expressing yourself. I was working with a couple clients and they've been expressing themselves and their whole life has changed, right? If you grow up in a family where maybe, I would say this is very indicative of the Black family. If your mom was very strong, I would say as a male, sometimes that could be a challenge to speak up, because mom may dominate or may make you feel uncomfortable. And as a man, we kind of reflect on the boy that we were, and we feel some kind of way until we heal that aspect of ourselves. But if we don't really speak up and speak our truth, then we're not really living life to the fullest. And so I would implore you to practice speaking your truth, even if it's small types of moments, right? Start writing it down. Start expressing yourself in a way that's a little bit different, right? Very, very important. Another thing too is be brave, be innovative. I noticed when I first came out here, I had some family members like, man, you gonna go to Washington? And I want to say it took me like a good 3 or 4 months to make the decision to come out here because the cost of living was ridiculous compared to Michigan. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna roll out. And so I did a little investigation, kind of came out a little bit, got the lay of the land, and then decided to shoot my shot. And had to be innovative. So I ended up kind of connecting with some cool people who are roommates to kind of keep the cost down, but also got an opportunity to kind of get to know the area, connected with some people, and saw life from a different perspective. But I had to be brave because I had to kind of reach out of my comfort zone and do something a little bit different, right? And it helped me develop more of my inner strength, and that's something that's really important. How do you develop that? Well, you develop that by constantly relying on that, right? But I want to implore people with that, because you can't just have inner strength if you don't have some sort of spiritual connection or some sort of body God or someone that you have that that has your back. Very, very important, because he will communicate to you to kind of help you as far as your past. Another thing too is make sure you communicate with other people, like I said earlier, as far as helping you grow, and they challenge you in a way that could be very, very productive. And so let me give you an example. I recall I was working with another professional in Michigan, and as I was developing my practice, they said, you should explore this other aspect. And it was a little uncomfortable at first. And when I explored it, but what I realized was there's a huge niche, and I really enjoyed it. But also too, it opened my mind to a whole different perspective. What if I just shut that person down? I wasn't open to it. My whole life would not be where it's at today. But also too, it was scary, right? So I had to kind of face the fear because it was the unknown. And so, we have to sometimes face those unknown types of things and be a little vulnerable, even though it's not comfortable, right? Be a little vulnerable, even though it's not comfortable, because it's the inner emotional aspect of ourselves. As we heal and grow that aspect of ourselves, what we notice is our life on the outside will totally reflect and change, like totally. But we got to be authentic with ourselves in order to get that experience. Okay. All right, real quick. So I want to kind of put a shout out to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. They've been so kind to make sure that they sponsor this particular men's health message for men's mental health awareness for men. Make sure you guys take a look at that. Take a look at them. They're on Instagram as well as Twitter, as well as YouTube. Make sure you check them out. And also, too, another thing I want to mention too is, what are you doing for your mental health? Right? Every day you should be working on your mental health. And people say, well, why is that important? Well, think about it. Like, do you eat every day? Why do you eat every day? Right? Because it's important to your body. Well, everything starts from the mind. What are you doing to make sure your mind is sharp? What are you doing to make sure you get in alignment with your dreams? What are you doing to make sure that you're balancing your stress levels with your success levels? What are you doing to regulate to make sure that your emotional aspect of yourself is under wraps, right? Or under control? This is where mental health comes in. I noticed as I helped a lot of clients regulate that, what I noticed is their life changed. Totally, totally. Sometimes you got to cut some people off because you realize that they're not really bringing a lot of value to your life. But ideally, when you cut them off, you realize that, wow, your life is a lot more enjoying. You're experiencing life on a higher level, a higher vibration. And then you see life from a different perspective. So once again, I will ask you guys to take a look at us, reach out to us here on Rainier Avenue Radio World. And as we come to a close here, make sure you guys take a look at my next host that'll be coming on shortly. Better Together, Living Powerfully, Dr. Tracy Harrell. Make sure you guys check her out from 6 to 7. We'll probably be connecting here shortly. But also, too, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, because I'd like for us to have more interaction as far as what you guys feel we should talk about for men's mental health. All right. So I know we did have some people reach out. Hopefully this was a little bit beneficial for you guys as far as your mental health, men's mental health message. I'll see you guys next week. Without further ado, you guys have a good one. Peace.